Well, everybody, we are back for another episode of Enneagram Story Podcast. I am your host, Braylon Williams. And like I always like to start off every episode by just saying thank you for joining me again, whether you're watching the podcast or whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Um, However you're hearing this, thank you for joining. This is a fantastic podcast in my opinion, but I might be a little biased. Who knows? But if you're new to this podcast, if this is the first time you're discovering this podcast, what is this podcast about? Well, this podcast is a weekly podcast that I produce where I just talk about how the Enneagram can be, in my opinion, the best tool to help us make the good in us better and the bad in us good. And I do that alongside so many fantastic guests. I mean, this season alone, you've heard from Tyler Zach, Brian Lee, Krista Harden, Meredith Boggs, my friend Adam Kennedy, Amy Wicks, and today there's another fantastic guest on the show as well. But before I tell you who that guest is, I like to do something every week where I just talk about what's happening in the life of me. And that just kind of helps make this entire thing a little bit more personal and less talk. It just helps bring in that conversation aspect of everything. So everything is like smooth sailing. I mean, right now school has just started back, so finally getting back into routine, finally getting back to be able to be in the classroom with students and to be their favorite sub. And as some have branded me as the cool sub, so there's that. But also, as we end August and come into September, I'm starting to finalize more details about my 25th, oh gosh, which is hard to believe, but my 25th birthday dinner celebration. And so I got some decorations that I've got to rent that I've been nailing down the finality of those. And so that's been the biggest thing recently. But once all that is taken care of, start moving into actually like getting invites and everything out. So it's hard to believe 25 is almost just 2 months away. Well, at this point, when you hear this episode, is going to be less than 2 months. It's going to be about a month and a half away at this point when you finally hear this episode. But I was telling the lady who I was speaking with for some of my decor rentals, it feels like yesterday I was just planning my 24th birthday celebration. It's like, where did the year go to? But 25 is coming up, and I am glad to be alive. Well, didn't mean to make that rhyme, but you see, I could do it anytime. It ain't nothing but a thing. Who knows? Maybe we can make it a swing. That one didn't land quite as well. I tried to get on a volley there, but kind of ended horribly. But anyway, let me go ahead and introduce you to today's guest. Like I said, one of the things that I love about doing this podcast is that I get to meet great people all the time. Today's guest is Jackie Brewster. She has her own podcast called Enneagram with JB, and she has also made some different Enneagram resources. One of my favorite things that she's done is Enneagram little cards. I have them. I can't show you because they're hidden right now. Can't get to them. But they're like little tabletop cards, and they have like discussion points. And so when I was at college, I used them a lot for people who would come in my room and say, hey, can you tell me about this? I'll pull them out, and it was one of those quick aids type of things. But I haven't really used them lately. And I actually won my set from a webinar that I attended with Amy Wicks. So little connection there. And that's actually how I found out about Jackie, was through Amy at her webinar. So that was a fun time. Jackie is a certified Enneagram coach and co-author of Hearing God Speak, which is a 52-week interactive Enneagram devotional. She consults with teams and individuals, leading them toward finding the best version of themselves in their work and personal environments by identifying their unique personality type through the teachings of the Enneagram and biblical truth. She is also an experiential specialist, and she lives in Franklin, Tennessee, who with her husband Stephen, who she's been married to for over 20 years, and they are parents to 4 amazing children. So now that you know a little bit more about Jackie and who she is and what she does, let's go ahead and bring her to the podcast because today I had the joy and the pleasure of speaking with Jackie about the shadow sides of each Enneagram type. Saying welcome to the podcast officially.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Um, I'm also trying to come up with stuff on the spot because my notes did not save the last time I put the last edits, and so there are things I'm trying to figure out. Like, did I put this in there?
Okay.
Um, so just tell me about your Enneagram journey, like how you discovered it, and then how, like, were you, was it, did you like receive it well when you first found out about it, or was it kind of like contingent between you and the system a little bit?
The I found out about it. A girlfriend sent me a book called The Wisdom of the Enneagram after a very difficult day at the park with my twins. And
Mm.
I got the book in the mail and thought, huh, this is weird. Like, what is this? And I don't like the symbol of this at all. Um, and I started to read about it, and I quickly realized, oh my goodness, I think she's trying to fix me. And I think that I need fixing. I felt completely overwhelmed in that season of my life. And so as I read about it, I took the test and I was like, oh, it says I'm an 8. So I start to read about it and I'm like, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then I looked at the 7 and everything about the 7. I was like, oh no, this is yes. So
Right.
I resonate with the 8 wing for sure. But the 7 is my heart. Like that is, gosh, that is it. So I felt like in that season, it gave me words, even in this season, but it gave me words to describe how I was feeling or things I thought about myself that I thought were flawed or broken. And I just recognized, like, no, I'm just not in a healthy space. And
Yeah.
so that, like, wanting to escape was a big part of it. Like, I just wanna run away from this. This is so hard. This season is so hard. We have 4 children. The last was a set of twins, and it was just a really difficult pregnancy, difficult everything. And so that's how I discovered the Enneagram. And then I just kept studying the Enneagram. So the twins are 15. The book was given to me when they were, like, 2. So, I've studied it for a long time, and then I decided to go ahead and become a coach, 7 years ago, I think, is when I got certified, and then started my practice after that and wrote a couple books and things since then, so
Yeah. And um, so I'm guessing your friend is a two because that just sounds like typical two.
she's a
And
5.
all right, everything I've known is blown out the water. I don't even know what to think anymore.
She's a 5.
Because
She's like MacGyver. She's like anything. I, like, locked my kids out of the house, and I was at a speaking engagement, like, 3 hours away, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, can you please go figure out how to get into my house and let my kids in my house?" She's like, "I got it. I'm on it." And then she just goes and breaks into my house. But no, she's a 5. Mhm.
that I was when you said she sent you a book in the mail about the Enneagram, I was
Mhm.
like, she's gotta be a two. And then,
Mhm.
well, I don't know what to think anymore. I gotta go back and study some more. But that is you said escapism about when you was telling your
Mm.
story about that,
Mhm.
and that's the heart of sevens right there,
Mhm.
just trying to escape. Honestly, I think we all do that in a way,
Mhm.
but for sevens,
Mhm.
it's just right there.
Mhm.
Um, that adrenaline rush is what you guys want, the
Mhm.
happy sides of life. I like the happy sides too.
Mhm.
So I'm a three, but I
Mhm.
tend to I nowhere in the system are drawn from seven, but I really like the ideas of seven, always
Yeah.
on the next thing.
Yeah, I am married to a 3, and sometimes his tendencies look like my tendencies.
Yeah.
So, again, right, no line to it at all, but there is, I mean, assertive stance, both of us are in the assertive stance,
Right.
but there is this, excitement piece and, like, futuristic, chasing dreams, doing all the things, fast-paced energy, we can accomplish everything kinda thing, and so, probably to our detriment at times for sure as
A
a couple,
lot to our
but
detriment.
right? Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I can definitely see the relatability between those two types, even though there is not a straight line to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. Like I said, my notes
Yeah,
did not save, so I don't. I'm trying to put some fluff time between actually going to where we need to go.
yeah.
So we talked about your Enneagram journey. Tell me a little bit about your podcast, Enneagram with JB, and then also
Mhm.
your coaching business.
Yeah, yeah. Enneagram with JB, the podcast. I am the host of it. It didn't start out like that. I had some different people with me along the way, and it just kind of became what it is today. I talk to individuals, sometimes Enneagram coaches and people in the field, about different aspects of the Enneagram. Sometimes I just talk to people about their Enneagram types and what's relatable and things like that. I'm always a student, so I always
Yeah,
want to learn from other people. Just because I read it in a book doesn't mean that it's true.
yeah,
There's a spectrum when it comes to each Enneagram type. So I love to learn. I love to learn through my social media when people comment back. I love it when they tell me, well, that's not true for me, things like that.
yeah,
I'm like, oh, okay, well, tell me more. Tell me tell me what feels true to you. And I'm not saying it in a sarcastic way or anything. I'm always curious around what's true for you because the journey is individual. And so that leans into my coaching. So I have a coaching practice that I've had for several years now. I see clients full time over Zoom, hour sessions. Um, I do it 3 days a week, and, the other 2 days I create content, and so, I love that time with my clients. I have individuals, I have couples, I work with teams and organizations, um, and just to help people figure out, the different parts of themselves, and so I journey with people. I don't come at it as, "This is it, and this is all you are." I come with it as, here's some information. Does it feel true? Can we talk about it? Let's explore where this is coming from. I look for patterns of behavior. That's really what I look
yeah.
for with my clients.
You're just speaking all of my languages here. Like journey, it's like one of my top
Mm,
favorite words. I refer to everything as a journey.
mhm,
But then also like just being in that, I never claim that I know anything, everything about anything. I'm like, we're gonna
mm,
figure this out together.
mhm,
Um, I'm also a substitute teacher, and a lot of times I'll tell the kids, "Your teacher left this in her plans. I don't know what that means, but we're going to
mhm,
figure it out together and get.
mhm,
Hopefully, it's what she meant."
mhm.
But it's just that
I
language
love
of
that. Mhm,
let's just work together. I think that's
mhm,
something that's really missing in culture together
mhm,
is
mhm,
just relying on each other
mm, mhm.
now. So if we could get back to that, we might be better off in a
I
lot of
know.
things.
I love this tool for one. I honestly, probably for one simple fact is that if we use the tool correctly, then it grows us an empathy and compassion for
Yeah,
ourselves and other people. It helps us to see that there's a spectrum and that there's all different ways that people view the world and that there is no right or wrong, better, best. It's what does it look like to attune to other people? What does it look like to
yeah,
be curious and listen, lean in and try to hear where they're coming from instead of move towards correction? Well, that's not right. That's not how you should think about it. So that the journey within that I work on is understanding you so you can hold space for other people and in this beautiful way.
right. Just need to. I'm gonna take that part and put it in just that part in the audiobook and be like, Jackie Brewster said this wonderful thing and publicize everywhere because that you just said that so beautifully.
Mm,
I couldn't say it better myself. Um, Honestly, yeah, we need to put that everywhere.
mm.
But hey, everybody, I just want to take a quick break from the show to say that I love having conversations with all of my listeners. And one of the ways that I do this is by engaging through social media. And you can follow the podcast at Enneagram Store Podcast on both Instagram and Facebook. I look forward to engaging with you all more on those platforms. So the main thing that I've kind of been covering this entire season of the podcast is this idea of active waiting, um,
Mhm.
and So I've been asking everybody, what does that word, that phrase mean to them? So how
Mhm.
would you define active waiting? Let's say you had like a 2 minute interaction with somebody on the street, and they just somehow asked you, "What does active waiting mean?" What would
Mhm.
you say that what it means to them,
Mhm. Mhm.
or to you rather?
Uh, yeah, I actually love this thought. In For me, I've done a lot of work to be able to actively wait, and I say that all in truth as I'm thinking through this, like actively waiting, because my personality type is like go big vision, let's go do all the things. And what I've learned is slow down, sit in it, and it doesn't mean that you can't continue to be curious. But it does mean quiet for me. So actively
Mm,
waiting, curiosity, I think would be a big part of this. Um, Leaning in, listening, learning to grow. I just want to hear like what do I need to hear in this moment? I don't need to do anything necessarily, but I'm trying to hear and sense and see and like what is next, but not moving to the next yet. It's like that's what I when you say that to me, that's what I think, and I resonate so much with this right now. So, does that answer your question?
oh yes. And it, so like the next question kind of
Mhm.
trails off on that is if you say you resonate with this so much
Mhm.
now, if it's okay if you could talk about with it now, or maybe even
Mhm.
something in the past that kind of illustrates that for you
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think this season feels like very compact, very busy, lots of things going on between clients, and I launched my first in-person intensive in October. I've got a book being pitched right now. There's just a lot of pieces that feel like, um, where are we going? And
Yeah.
so I felt a couple weeks ago, literally a downshift. I felt a pause, like just sit, slow down, and look at what you are trying to accomplish and realign. Is this all in alignment with what you feel you're supposed to be doing? And that's that active waiting for me. Is it is like, okay, let me look at it all and see, and then kind of wait, like, and sit back and make sure that I am not moving too fast, just getting to the next. Just because something looks exciting doesn't mean I should participate. So that downshift for me right here is it does feel like that active waiting where I'm like, there's a lot on the table. I'm not sure it's all for me. And so slowing down, being still, realigning what is for me, like what is my next. That is where I feel like I am with the active waiting piece.
Mm, I like that word, realignment. Never made that connection. Every time I talk with a guest, somebody they always give me a new connection in this, and you just gave me another one with realignment and active waiting. So
Mhm.
thank you for that.
Mm.
I kind of went off with a rabbit trail and forgot my next thought.
That's okay. My dog might bark right now as this person comes in my house. Sorry. I This never happens. I am so sorry. I
It is
almost was
all
like,
right.
I wonder if I need to reschedule this. And I was like, no, I can do this. I kind of told everybody to stay away. Didn't
It is all right.
Hey,
What kind of
stop.
dog do you have?
Um, like a Australian Shepherd mix that's
Mm.
old and very protective. So,
So I like it.
okay. I'm sorry
Um,
about that.
don't be sorry. I love it. Um, it brings a little bit of life to the podcast because I live alone in my apartment, so there's never everything happening. So
Oh, well, you can experience this for a little bit.
I'm like, I actually like this because I miss having other people around. So um, there was just a moment that I was trying to key
Mhm.
into, and I forgot what it was. Just like that. Um, so um, ex- things that look exciting to you. I'm trying to figure out
Mhm.
the best way to phrase
Mhm.
this. What 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 would some of those things like look like, feel like to you? Um, Maybe it's activities or whatever, but like when you are thinking, what is for me to do right
Mhm.
now?
Mhm.
And you have this listed options. Like,
Mhm.
what does those options typically kind of look like?
Mm. Well, today, those options, it looks like people. It is, what, like who do I need to hold space for? How do I need to hold space for people? Um, what opportunities exist in front of me that allow me to do what I do in this space and hold space for people to journey within and really uncover and discover parts of themselves. So anything that I feel excited about in this season has to do with people and people finding freedom and healing through the self-awareness that they are having. Owning their own stories, owning their own journeys, and from there being able to acknowledge the role that they play in their story, and we can pivot towards growth from that place. And so that is really probably where I'm most excited. Um, my husband, he works in music business, so I'm always excited about our artists that we get to represent and the music that they are putting out. I'm always excited about, um, you know, their passion projects and different things that they're working on. So it's always people.
I like that. People are fun, but
Mhm.
also sometimes a pain in the butt. Uh,
Well, yeah. All of it's true.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna kind of lead us down a little bit of a different trail here, and hopefully I can bring
Mhm.
us back in a moment.
Mhm.
But because like rewriting story is something that I've been kind of thinking of for myself personally recently, so I
Mm.
kind of want to go down that
Mhm.
trail a little bit. How like what's like the first thing you encourage people with uh, when you have them kind of rewrite their story? Like I would say like a disclaimer of like saying, hey, it's not going to be easy, but it's worth it type of thing.
Mhm. Mhm. So when I'm doing story work with people, and I would say when I'm doing journey work with people, um, I start at messaging. That's where I start, and I use the Enneagram around unconscious childhood messages and these heart longing messages. And so when I start there, um, we've got to be kind to ourselves along the journey.
Right.
We've got to understand that part of our story and part of our journey, the parts that we probably don't want to look at, the parts that we don't want to necessarily claim, those parts they're part of our story for a reason. And that all of us as human beings, we seek three things. All of us, we seek, how do we keep ourselves safe, how do we get love, and how do we get connection? And when you look at your patterns of behavior through that lens, through those three lenses, we'll see where it fits. And so even though there's parts of our story that we don't love, I want to approach it with kindness to self, curiosity around the why, and then knowing that we can move past it. We can move beyond it. It doesn't define us. They're not like, you know, they're not defining moments necessarily. Although we do have defining moments in our lives, but sometimes we have to recognize what it is. And maybe it's not a defining moment, but we've allowed it to define us for far too long. And I mean, I can feel the passion as I say that to you. I love the way you've posed this question to me because I don't know that I've thought about it like that. But um, I just want people to be kind to themselves in the story work that they're doing.
I like that. I like that. So, in encouraging them to be kind,
Mhm,
I know I've had this, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people have had this moment. You've probably had it too, where
mhm.
like there's a moment in our story like we recognize that we need to work through, but it just seems too scary to work through. And so,
Yes.
what's like some practical application, like quick
Mhm,
tips to
mhm,
like
mhm,
get us over that like hurdle of not wanting
mhm,
to work through because it's so scary?
mhm, mhm. Yes, I have had to do really scary work. I didn't want to do some of the work that I've had to do to be able to find freedom. There is freedom on the other side of this work. I promise that. And so, when we think about the, there's, nothing is quick. That's what I would say.
Oh
There's
yeah.
nothing quick. That healing takes time. This work takes time. It's oftentimes I say when I start to do work with clients, it's like the first 3-ish months is recognizing ourselves in our own
Mm,
story In around 6 months, you might be able to catch yourself before you act the way that you've always acted. But it's a process that we have to recognize. If we fix too fast, it's behavior modification. It's not heart transformation.
Mm,
And so there
I
has
like
to be a
that.
pause, right? There has to be a pause. If we want this to be from our heart place, we've got to get to the heart of the matter. And so I think journal work is important. Not all types want to do this, and so I think there's actually some different modalities for the different types of personality. But for some people, journal work is really important. There is something about writing down what you're scared of. What are you afraid you're going to encounter? What do and it might be like, I don't want to feel the embarrassment. I don't want to feel the shame. I don't want to remember. Like, I don't, and okay, then we start there at the basics. You just look at it when you write it down and you can read it back to yourself. You can ask yourself more about it. You can get more curious around it. What am I embarrassed about? It already happened, likely,
Yeah.
so you've already lived through that. And what was that like? And what does it look like to forgive yourself or to forgive others? What is it? I don't, everybody's story is different. So that whatever's in it. A lot of the work too that I do with people is what is true today. What is true
Mm,
today? Because we can get so caught up in the past story or the future what ifs that we've got to kind of pull it down. Like, what is true today? And the other part that I would say that the work that you're talking about, kind of entering into something like this that we don't necessarily want to do, but we know we need to, are you safe enough to do it? Do you have a support system around you that can help you do this work? If you don't feel safe in your relationship or you don't have a support system around you, it's really hard for us to ask you to go into a place like that if you don't have the supports
yeah.
in place. So, safety is key to doing any type of healing journey work. You've got to feel safe enough to do the work.
I like that. As you were talking about like feeling shame and embarrassment, it kind
Mhm,
of reminded me of recently in my life where I come to realize that I I took a test back when I discovered the Enneagram just to like
mhm,
be a part of conversations. It said I was an
mhm,
eight.
mhm,
Eight felt right, so I just
mhm,
lived in it, but never
mhm,
actually fully lived in it.
mhm,
And so this year I start to feel like maybe I'm actually a three.
mhm,
But as to start to think more and more about that, I'm like, why have I been so afraid to identify with a three? And a lot of it was I was embarrassed that I wanted adoration, that I wanted the
mhm,
praise.
mhm,
I was embarrassed from, the fact that I felt so much shame even to begin
mhm,
with, because that's like the hardcore of threes is shames.
mhm.
And
Right.
so it was that moment.
Mhm,
So it's so true what you just said. It's like you
mhm,
gotta start with recognition type of
mhm,
thing.
mhm. Mhm. That's a vulnerable place for you to be to recognize that piece of the 3 and be like, "Ooh, I don't want people to think that about
Yeah.
me," you know?
Right.
Um, 3s 3s are beautiful and amazing and talented. You guys have so much going for you guys. They talk about the chameleon side of a 3,
Oh
and
yes.
I think that, um, that is a gift until it's not. Like, it is a beautiful part of your personality that you can adapt into different environments and that you can influence different environments until it gets distorted and then it
Yeah.
becomes manipulation, right? But the 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 purity of it is not manipulation.
Yeah.
It it's just the distortion of it. So there's such beautiful parts of the 3. And the I do a ton of the childhood work within the Enneagram system. So I know, like, the roots of where it comes from, and that is tender work for a 3.
Yeah.
It's very tender to understand that side of yourself, but there's
Well,
such healing on that side.
I might
Mhm.
have to talk with you some more later
Mhm.
about the childhood work, because
Mm.
as a substitute teacher, I was thinking, how can I give a tool to educators? I've been starting
Oh,
this work of where like I try to put together some type of PDF or something where
yes.
it's like how to handle Enneagram, how to handle behavior management using the Enneagram. And so I might have
Oh,
to
yes.
talk to you again one day.
Yeah, talk to me offline, and yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
So,
Mhm. I've got
um,
4 kids. I'm passionate about that work.
oh
Yes.
yeah, kids, I love them to death, but
Mhm.
they
They're hard.
They
Mhm.
are.
Mhm.
Especially I work with a lot of like younger kids, and
Mhm.
um, especially just behavior wise. I'm like, I see why you're upset,
Mhm. Mhm.
but as a three for me, I'm like, there's got to be a more efficient way of working through this feeling right here.
Yes, yes,
Can I help you?
yes,
Let me
yes.
help you.
I mean, part of that piece of the 3 that childhood messaging is it's not okay for you to have your own feelings or your own
Yeah.
identity. So for you, you're like, "No, we don't do feelings. Like, come on, guys,
Yes.
suck it up. Like,
Yeah.
go pick a different toy. Like, what's going on?"
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
That's literally what I say every time in my head. I'm like, oh wait, I gotta remember these are kids. I gotta be cautious of their feelings. I'd be like, okay, it's okay, but in my head, I'm like, my mother would tell me, suck it up, buttercup, and
Yes.
go do something else.
Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I
Yeah.
often say we have a hard time giving to other people what we can't give to ourselves.
Yes.
And so every Enneagram type has a something specific around that. And so when you start to understand that, you're like, "Oh, that's why that bothers me so
Yeah.
bad."
I
You
will
know?
say that being a
Mm.
substitute teacher has helped emotionally though, because I'm like, I can't be so cold hearted towards the kids. I gotta show compassion. So I've learned and grew from
Yes.
that.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
been tough. Um, but anyway, that's a whole different thing. But I'm
Mhm.
definitely going to hit you up later.
Mhm.
I just started in a couple of weeks, kind of thinking through the basis of all that. So it's
Mhm.
probably going to be a while till I talk to you again about
Oh,
it.
yeah. Mhm.
But I'm definitely going to hit you up since you do a lot of child work with that.
Mhm. I do.
Um, Words cannot express the amount of gratitude that I have for each and every one of my listeners. So, if you would like to support Enneagram Store podcast even more, you can do so by sending a tip by going to enneagrammerstore.com /tip jar. That's enneagrammerstore.com /tip jar. That's enneagrammerstored.com /TIPJAR. Enneagrammerstore.com /tip jar. But since we're talking about the scary stuff of life, and really the main reason I want to talk to you, because I know you do a lot of, I've seen a lot of posts on Instagram about shadow size
Mhm.
from you. So I don't know much about it. So I'm
Mhm.
really just going to be a cup under your fountain of water and just drink from your knowledge. And so at this point, really,
Mhm.
how you want to do it, talk about like all the shadow size of the Enneagram type and like how we can use it to our advantage in waiting seasons and everything.
Okay, let me ask you this question. I gotta pull up a different doc over here. Um, do you want me to go through all 9 types in shadow side?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Um,
Like, okay, how long do you want this to be?
so
Uh, hold on.
you don't have to go very in depth. You can
A
go,
little bit. I'll give a little bit,
yeah.
from each one. Are you okay if I use a doc that I have to read from?
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay, I can't do it off the top of my head. It's too much content. Okay, but the shadow work. So, uh, so the shadow side is a part of yourself that you deny, suppress, or hide from view. It may involve areas you refuse to acknowledge or simply are unaware of that impact the way that you behave. So when we talk about the shadow side, there's a lot of the times that we are not aware that we are functioning from the shadow side. We do not recognize that the way that people view us and the way that we view ourselves is not the same. That we are kind of blind to parts of ourselves. If I look at it through the Enneagram lens, it's really this average range or lower average range of
Yeah,
personality where we've kind of lost some of the essence or the access to the essence of who we are. So we're in this fear and worry and trying to figure life out. And how do I get love? How do I get my needs met? How do I keep myself safe? Those 3 messages that are cradle to grave messages. And so how do we trying to do this? And so each Enneagram type um, has some different tendencies. So I what I'll do for time's sake is I'll give you a possible shadow side and then maybe signs that your shadow side is affecting your behavior and you
oh yeah,
can take note if, as we go through this, if you're interested in this. I do have, I don't know if it's out yet. I do have a subscription that people can sign up for, and shadow work is in it. I don't know that it might not come out till October though, but there is shadow work, so this content would be available in that way. But the possible shadow sides for the Enneagram one, you may be overly judgmental or critical of others, believing you have every right to think, feel, and say things because you know what is right and wrong. That could be a shadow side, and you might be like, well, that's just how I am, like,
Yeah.
or other people will be like, well, that's just the one in general. Um, this is parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with, but it's not the essence of who we are. This is like we're just trying to figure it out. Signs that your shadow side is affecting your behavior. For one, you judge other people according to your standards. You say judgmental and sometimes rude comments about people who are different from you. You smile and act nicely, yet inside you are actually frustrated and mad. That's probably a big shadow right there. You're very rigid and critical towards yourself. That inner critic is really, really loud. So, how other people are perceiving you versus how you think you are would be the thing. So, justified in your right to judge, and then other people are feeling like, you're really judgmental. Why? And if we go back to some of the stuff that we talked about a little bit ago, like where does that come from? Well, the safest way that you learned how to be in the world is not to make mistakes. You want to be
Yeah.
seen as good and right in the eyes of other people. So you can't understand why people would not have that same focus of attention. And so it would come out of that place.
I like that.
So the Enneagram 2, possible shadow sides for the 2, you may struggle with establishing healthy boundaries in your life, saying yes when you don't want to, really just kind of going above and beyond at the cost of who you are. You might unconsciously engage in a give to get pattern within your relationships, believing if you give to them, ultimately you're going to get what you want in return. This is pretty much standard for the Enneagram 2. However, it is at a subconscious level. This is not a conscious thing most of the time that's happening. It's just like, well, this is how I learned to get my needs met. This is how everybody should do it. Like, you should just know this about me. I work with a lot of twos, and they're just like, people should just know. They should know my
Yeah.
favorite coffee beverage. And I'm like, but they don't. Or they should just know that this is what I want to do. But they don't, because they're not mind readers. Um, Signs that your shadow is affecting your behavior. You find yourself trying to please people at the expense of yourself. So, one of the ways that I talk about people pleasing, which is not pretty, but pleasing people is not really about making other people happy, but it's really about caring about what they think about you. Like, I want them to think a certain way about me. So then I'm going to have to say yes because I want them to think I'm kind. I want them to think I'm generous. I want them to think I'm sweet, whatever it is. And so then you end up in these patterns and you're like, this is costing me everything. This
Yeah.
is costing me my peace. And the work we want to do right there is like, okay, let's go back to the why. Why are you saying yes? You know, um, you get angry and upset when you don't feel like you're being seen or valued. You feel guilty when you take time for yourself or treat yourself to something that you've wanted, because it's okay for you to take time to treat yourself. It's okay for you to buy something that you want. You shouldn't have to feel ashamed about that. But oftentimes the two feels like it's not okay for me to have my own needs. That's selfish. I don't want people to think I'm selfish. So they'll sometimes even sneak, like, I'm going to get a treat, but I'll throw the wrapper away so nobody knows I got the
Mm.
treat. And it's like, that would be a shadow side. You can have a treat. It's okay. You know, like, um, so that's the 2. If we look at the 3 on the shadow side, you ready?
I don't know if I am. Be
I know.
preparing.
Uh,
It's like, all right, Braylon, don't put your
yeah.
shit up too hard.
I want to hear from you on this though. Okay. So you can't differentiate your true self from the image, such as job, role, or title. Like, I am what I do. Right?
That's part of my work right now is trying to figure out is this actually me, or is this something I put on to like
Mhm.
garner attention and admiration? So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah,
It's tough, and for the 3, their, worth is attached to identity, which is attached to doing.
yes,
So, when I'm working with a 3, it takes time to unhinge, like, unhitch those things from each other. Like, what do you want? What do you like? What do you care about? Most of it's like, I don't know, my focus has been on achieving. Like, I
yeah,
am that thing I do, and I'm like, "No, that thing you do is what you do, but you're not that thing."
right,
So, it's hard work to really begin to unpack that. Another one, you don't allow yourself to feel your emotions because you are busy achieving. Like, we just gotta keep
big time.
going, gotta keep doing. So we do lots of work around those feelings. Signs that your shadow is affecting your behavior, you're unaware of what you really want and desire apart from that achieving piece, which is what you just said. You're trying to
Yeah,
figure out, like, good work on trying to figure that out. When you have downtime and you feel anxious, nervous, and maybe even fearful that you're gonna get behind, you're gonna be forgotten, like.
the forgotten part is the large piece right there
Mhm,
of the puzzle.
mhm,
That's the
mhm,
part that really, at least for me, brings a lot of like angst and
mhm,
anxiety and just honestly fear.
mhm,
It's
mhm.
like I want my name etched to history,
Yeah. Mhm,
so nobody forgets me. So
mhm, mhm.
that's speaking
Yeah.
my language.
Yeah, so if you took a break from social media, if you took a break from your podcast, oh my gosh, people are gonna forget. They're gonna
Yes,
move on, and I'll lose traction, I'll lose momentum. I can't. It's this it is and it's for other people listening, it'd be like, I mean, that's ridiculous, right? But for a 3, I'm like, "No, it's not. This is
that's
like
life
life and death."
changing. Yeah,
Yes. This is, like, at the core of who they are, and so, identity is attached to this, so
I
we gotta
just
go slow.
I
Mhm.
just come to realize like I grew up in church,
Mhm.
so a lot of my identity was just attached to church and what I do in church,
Mhm.
and so always making sure I was at church at every event, doing everything,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
singing and being a part of every production because that was got me. Remember,
Mhm.
people knew me
Mhm.
from what they
Mhm.
saw me on stage.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, my church in Springfield is James River, and it's a mega church.
Mhm.
So students that I substitute for it, they'll be like, "I
Mhm.
recognize you from the stage." It's like,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
that does my heart good. At the
Mhm.
same time, when I'm working through this, I'm like, that's
Mhm.
not a good piece. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of tension
Mhm.
between what I want as a core 3, but what
Mhm.
I'm trying to achieve in my work. And so
Mhm. Mhm.
it is,
Yeah, there's a lot of work. I work with a lot of artists in that worship space. And it's performance or presence. Like, we
yeah,
work a lot around this, and it's there and it's true, and um it's a struggle. It is like authentic. Like, I want to be my authentic self, and what does that
right.
mean? And so I think that alignment piece, like
Mhm.
continuing to make sure you're aligned, that is that piece that I think resonates with a lot of my 3s in that space around what am I chasing and why am I chasing it?
Right.
Because doing good things is not bad. Why we do good things is what we've got to look at.
I'm still in that word. That's going to become
Mhm.
my word for 2025, alignment.
Alignment. It's a good one. Maybe me too. I'm already in it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just gonna
Yeah.
stay in it. I don't know. Um, um, okay, so a little more on that 3, you spend a lot of time cultivating an image that others will find attractive and engaging. So when we're
Right.
in this place, you view every situation as a competition. When we're in this place, it's kind of like, what's going on? What's going
Yeah.
on? I think we're losing the core, the essence of who we are, trying to make sure that we're somebody,
Yeah.
but you are already somebody. And that's the work, right? Just helping you see you are already somebody.
It's
Uh,
easier
mhm.
said than done for a 3, honestly.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Um, I think, like, I coach all the types. Right now I've got a good amount of 3s on my roster, and a lot of the work is tell yourself the truth.
Yeah.
Tell yourself the truth. And it can be as simple as, The other day, my husband and I, the twins, wanted to go get something to eat. So I was like, okay. They're like, let's go get something to eat and then let's play pickleball. I was like, okay, let's do it. So I was like, hey, babe, we're gonna go get something to eat and come on. And so he gets in the car and he's like prickly. He's just frustrated. And I'm like, I thought you said you wanted to go. And he's like, mm-hmm. We get to dinner and he's just being bratty. Not really, just, just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, not warm. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, I really just wanted to watch the game. And I said, but you should have said I wanted to watch the game. He's like, well, I didn't want to disappoint you. You wouldn't have disappointed me. I would have taken these girls to dinner and gone to play pickleball. So now I'm going to drop you off after dinner and take them to go play pickleball.
Yeah.
But it's permission to tell the truth. And that I think is really hard for threes. I know we're sitting on this one for a little bit longer, but I think it is really hard for the three because it doesn't feel okay for
Right.
you guys. Like, what are they going to think about me? Or I don't want to disappoint them, or I should I should do what they think I should do.
Yeah.
And I want you guys to be able to tell yourself the truth because then you can tell other people the truth. It's hard work.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So the Enneagram 4, you may seek connection, but instead push people away for fear of rejection. There's this push and pull that happens with the 4. Oftentimes they don't see it that they're doing it.
Right.
They don't see it. Um, you may feel as though you're not as good as others and that others look down on you. So there's that fear, a lot of social anxiety I see with the Enneagram 4s around acceptance, like I'm not going to be accepted. So I oftentimes say they enter into situations kind of like a porcupine. They're guarded, they're ready to just, they're all right. They're a little spiky, they're a little prickly already because they expect to be rejected.
Mm, I
Yeah.
like that imagery. I'm gonna steal that too.
Yeah. You steal it all. I've got like a little plastic porcupine that I use in session with people. All the imagery helps people, I think,
Yeah.
really catch it too. So, signs that the shadow side's affecting your behavior as a 4, you purposely say off color things and act outrageously. That's part of it. It's like, you know what? I'll tell them or I'll do something before they can say anything about me. I'll tell them about me.
Yeah.
That's a big part of a 4. And you're like, hey, buttercup, slow down there. It's like, just take that one down a notch. But that is part of that porcupine. Like, I'm not going to let you hurt me.
Right.
I'm not going to let you hurt me. You push people away to see if they'll come back. That's that push and pull. You focus intently on the negative aspects of situations, giving little attention to the positive side of things. And that's part of the 4 in general. They kind of like swallow the negative and spit out the positive. So somebody could give somebody a compliment. And like my girlfriend's a 4, and I had said we were talking about this, and she's like, well, like if you said, oh, I love your new haircut. She said, I would immediately think, oh my gosh, was my other haircut bad? Should I have not have done that? And I was like, are you serious? She's like, oh yeah, that's where my head goes immediately is, oh, I guess the other way was bad.
Yeah.
As a
Yeah.
7, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
saying you like this one, then evidently you
Yeah.
didn't like the other one.
Uh-huh.
Even though you probably said you liked the last one too.
Mm-hmm.
But they
Isn't
forgot
that
all about that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So again, when we're looking at the shadow side, it's the curiosity around why am I doing this? What is actually happening? What am I actually afraid of? Okay, the shadow
Yeah.
side is typically we put on these behaviors or these patterns because we're fearful. We're fearful. Fearful of what? Every Enneagram type is going to have a different fear.
Yeah.
The Enneagram 5 in the shadow side, you may suppress your own need for connection, relationship, and love. So, isolation. And that would be just fearing the expectations of others or feeling you're not going to, be able to sustain it, or your needs are not going to be able to be met in it, or they're going to be overpowered or overshadowed. And so it's like isolation is safer. You may give little thought or attention to developing your own emotional well being. So it's all about gathering information, but not necessarily paying attention to how are you feeling or emotionally, what do you need? So, signs of this, you think you are not capable of loving or caring for someone else at a deep level.
Mhm.
You isolate yourself from friends and loved ones. You think you don't have enough time or energy to give to anything or anyone else without depleting yourself. So, again, that fear piece, like
Right.
isolation is safer because this is just all going to require too much of me. You feel detached from your emotions and seem to be watching your life from the sidelines. You're there, you're present, but you're not present in the moment.
Yeah, it's like a third person view.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, you kinda detach. Sometimes the Enneagram 5 will be part of it, but not involved in it. Like, they're there, but they're not engaged in it.
Yeah.
So we'll see that for the 5. Again, when you're working through this, it's like, "Oh, okay, why am I doing that?"
Right.
That's what we're looking for in the shadow. Why am I doing that? If you can acknowledge it, you can change it, okay? You cannot change what you're unwilling to acknowledge. So why do we
Yeah.
do this work? If we can acknowledge it, we can begin to move through it,
They always say
okay?
the first step of AA is to admit that there's something wrong. So
That's
there.
right. It's acknowledgement. You
Yeah.
cannot change what you're unwilling to acknowledge. And again, you've got to work through. We cannot bypass. We can't jump over. We
Yes.
can't take another route. Like you've got to work through if you want.
Right.
If you want understanding and healing, you've got to work through it. So, okay, possible shadow sides for the 6. You might get caught up in focusing on what could go wrong and forget that you have the strength, wisdom, and discernment to protect yourself. That fear piece, which the 6s, we hear a lot about fear within the Enneagram 6, anxious and fearful. So when the shadow side is loud, when you're really living in it, it's feeling like you feel trapped. Like, I don't know that there's an out. I don't know where to go. I feel scared. And so it's
Right.
like, "Ooh, let me," and there's 2 ways, right? So there are 2 different types of 6s. So as I kinda pull
Yeah.
myself back, there's 2 ways. So there's one that kinda pulls in, retreats. There's another one that gets big, bold, and it feels very 8-ish. So there's 2 different ways a 6
Yeah. I was going
can
to ask you
approach
about
this.
that, how the shadow side works with the counterphobic and the
Mhm.
phobic six. And so
You'll
I'm glad
see
you brought
2
that
different
up.
expressions of it, where one gets more withdrawn and one gets more probably, willing to take risks, willing like, bold,
Right.
um abrasive, can be abrasive,
Ooh, I
which
like
that wouldn't
that.
normally
Abrasive.
be them, but
Yeah.
that, okay, you might work on your physical appearance as a way to feel strong and confident. A lot of 6s, the gym, running, working some type of physical activity is a huge part, um, of the way that the 6 releases stress in general. And so usually there's work around that I want a 6 to move their body in whatever way feels right, but to move their body, to move through the anxiousness that's within them.
I wish I had that six part. But no, I go to nine and stress and I shut down and get on the couch and sleep.
Yes, you do. You're like, "Mhm, and we're done. Mhm.
Yeah.
Binge watch. What am I gonna binge watch?" Yeah. Oh, okay, the shadow side, like, signs that the shadow side is affecting your behavior. You believe somehow, that you deserve what is coming to you because of what you have or haven't done. So there's just this fear.
Mm,
You're just kind of anticipating the worst. You're indecisive and unable to take action. You feel guilty and struggle with feelings of anxiety and fear. So you feel bad for feeling that way, but then you're trapped in the cycle of it. So a lot of procrastination when we're here,
right.
which the 6 goes to a 3, and stress, usually we see a lot of movement. But if we're here, there's a good amount of shutdown that's happening, or there's a lot of movement, but it's kind of sporadic, like it's edgy kind of movement
Yeah.
that's
And
happening.
it's not really like productive type of thing.
That's right. Good. Yeah, that's a great way to say that. Um, okay, if we look at the 7 possible shadow sides for the Enneagram 7, you may suppress pain, sadness, loneliness, or other difficult emotions for fear of being trapped forever in these feelings. As a 7, yes, and you don't recognize you're doing it. You don't even know. Like, I would say that I didn't know this about myself until I started to do work and like,
Right.
oh, I as as high as low as I go will give me access to as high as I go. Like, I don't know, I'm not saying that right, but if I can't feel sadness, then I can't feel joy to the fullest
Right.
that I want to feel it. So it might not be true joy, it might just be a fabricated
Yeah.
joy in it.
Yeah.
So it's
And
it
it's
Yeah.
It seems oxymoronic to
Mhm.
say, "Hey, you got to go low so you can feel high," but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. It is,
true.
like, allowing yourself to feel that and to know that you're gonna make it through it. But when you just keep busy, keep moving, keep going, you might seek out excitement, pleasure, adventure, and fun as a way of avoiding your reality or being stuck in a situation. So escapism, like you're just trying to
Right,
figure out how to feel better, how to be happy. Signs that your shadow side would be affecting your behavior, constantly seeking stimulation, adventure, and activity, busyness, going, doing, buying, gathering. Um, you know, d- it's like anything to distract, really. You're keeping a fast pace in your life and avoiding any downtime or quiet time. And that's even with noise around you, constantly keeping the TV on or music playing, the constant like
right,
chatter. It just keeps you up here so you don't have to go down here. Like, keeps me in my head, I don't have to go to my heart. You feel the need to always be fun, happy-go-lucky, and outgoing, but you desire to be taken seriously too. That inner struggle, is real. You quickly move forward instead of processing a situation or circumstance that is heavy, difficult, emotionally draining, or even devastating. This would be true, like, you're just trying to get through. You don't wanna go through it, you wanna bypass it. You
right.
just wanna bypass it. Um, but for somebody that's done the work and is doing the work and has to do the work, um, going through it, there's such clarity on the other side.
A tunnel is dark while the train is
Mhm.
in it, but once it
Mhm.
gets out, there's a sunlight.
There you go. I mean, that is the truth, right? It really is. It's scary in the middle.
Yeah.
It's scary. Okay, if we look at the 8, possible shadow sides for the 8, you may avoid feelings of vulnerability and weakness and ignore sensitivities in your life, acting as though they don't exist. So the denial of, I'm fine, I'm good, let's go. Again, the 8 seeks intensity, much like the
Yeah.
7. You might misinterpret reality because what is true might not fit into what you want to be true. So
Hmm.
you make your own stories. Okay. And that's one of those things where what you believe and what somebody else is experiencing is probably not the same thing.
Yeah. A little
Mhm.
bit of a three quality right there that they share.
Mm, mhm.
So,
Yep. There is some overlap, in some of this with the 3 and the 8. Different reasons, different coping mechanisms and
yeah.
strategies, but there is some of that image piece here. Oftentimes I say, like, the 3 crafts, like, you guys adapt to different
Right.
environments, the 8s, they craft an image that they believe will keep them safe, and then they live that out. They're like, I'm like, "I'm gonna be a businessman, and this is what I'm gonna do, and this is how I'm gonna present. I'm gonna be strong and bold and da 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 da." And then they live that out. Or, there's more of a rebellious 8. It might look like, you know the
Right.
extreme. I'm gonna be a biker gang, and that's what I'm gonna do, and this is gonna keep me safe. So the focus of attention around that safety piece for the 8
Right.
is different than the 3, where the 3 safety piece is like, I'm gonna be awesome. I'm gonna perform. I'm gonna dazzle. I'm gonna wow
Yeah.
people. That's gonna keep me safe. The 8 is like, I'm gonna be strong and bold, and that's gonna keep me safe. So
Somehow I'm getting this comparison. Threes are like Sharpay from High School Musical, whereas eights are Ryan.
I love it. I love it. Did you
Just
do
came to
student
me.
ministry?
So that
That's
just hit me right now.
amazing. I love it.
So
That is amazing. Um, okay, so the signs that your shadow side is affecting your behavior, you believe your opinion is right, the only right one, even without having all the data. You're going to stand firm on it and push through, maybe even bully your way through. You seek intensity by stirring conflict to avoid feeling bored or even those lower emotions. You seek constant stimulation through fun and exciting experiences as a way of avoiding feeling empty, sad, maybe even some anxiety or confusion. So you've got some overlap with that 7 on some of this, the stimulation, the
right.
seeking piece. You struggle with impulsivity and indulging yourself to avoid difficult situations or feelings. So if any of that would ring true, it's worth getting curious around, what's going on? what's going on, what's really going on inside of
Yeah.
me, you know? And again, most of this, the shadow side, like we're not aware of this. So we're
Yeah.
living in the average to the lower average range of personality. This is just who I am. This is just how I function. I'm just this, I'm this dynamic, as an 8. Like I'm this charged all the time. And then you work with a coach or a therapist or somebody and they're like, "But why?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Why are you asking me that? Don't ask me that. I don't know why." You
It's a
know?
three-letter word, but it brings so much truth.
Yes, it's powerful when you start to do why work. It's really powerful. Okay, the possible shadow sides of the 9, you might unconsciously avoid finding out what you really want because you try to maintain comfort and connection with others. So instead of going towards what you really, really want, it's safer to just stay in what you know.
Yeah.
So that risk taker piece is just kind of not on the table. You may suppress anger and aggression because you don't like the way those feelings make you feel. You're like, "Oh, I don't that makes me feel ick, so I'm gonna stay away from that," or environments that would trigger that. Um, Signs that your shadow side is affecting your behavior, however, though, you become passive aggressive because emotions need motion. So
Yeah.
emotions get trapped in you if you don't let them move through you. And so you're kinda holding it all in, holding it all in. Eventually, it's gonna come out, and oftentimes it is kind of explosive, and then they wanna move on. If that happens, we wanna know why, okay? You find yourself procrastinating, maybe you become irritable and stubborn. Um, you know you need to find a job, change jobs, or get out of a relationship, yet you don't take any action to move towards anything healthier. So that stuck piece, like just being kind of stuck
Yeah.
in it, that would be a shadow side. Like, why are you stuck? What is causing you to feel like it's too risky to take movement in a healthier direction? So those are the shadow signs, kind of in a nutshell, um, for all the types. And if you've studied the Enneagram, it's probably familiar.
Oh
You're
yeah.
probably like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, it sounds a lot of the basis of the core
Hmm.
fears, honestly.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
one of the things that I was thinking as you were going through that, of course, the first part of everything, like we said already, is to acknowledge the why.
Hmm.
And so I kind of this next question, I kind of want to split into like two groups. There, you got the group that's like nowhere near even figuring out their why, but
Hmm.
then you got the group that's close, but they're just missing that one piece of the puzzle
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
figuring it out. If you could give like three practical steps to finding that why for each group, that would
Hmm.
be great.
hmm So nowhere near finding the why. I don't, for you, if you're listening to this and you're like, I have no idea, like I'm really far from it. I would take some notes on maybe what you heard and look back at it and start to say like, huh. So if I pull up, let me pull up one and just look at it. Um, the shadow side for the 6, you know, y you're in the gym, you're working on your physical appearance, you wanna feel really strong and confident, um, and you feel really disciplined around it, and it doesn't that's not a bad thing at all, but it's like, "Huh, but why am I doing it? Do I am I doing this because I wanna feel fit, or am I doing this because there's an expectation I feel that's on me, or am I doing this because I wanna feel strong and bold in the environments I'm in, and this helps me do that? So we wanna get curious. So it's kind of writing it down and really getting to the why, asking ourselves, like, what and I think both of the categories that you said, this is kind of the work. It's whether
Yeah,
you're really far from it, then it's like, do you care about it?
yeah,
Do you care about wanting to know the why? So the curiosity piece around it. Do you care about it? Um, you might list out like, if I had to look at my core fear, use the Enneagram, use social media, go look at other accounts to see, uh, go search the core fears for the types, write it down, see what's true for you, and then you're likely going to see the behaviors in the core fear, just like you said, like they're connected to the shadow side. Um, but I think both of the categories, it's the taking time to sit with the information. And so one of them is going to be more curious, beginning, what are my core fears? What do I think about this information? The other one that's like, I'm in it. I know my core fears. I'm seeing these things that I'm hearing, uh, acting, being acted out in my life. Take it the next step and go deeper and really sit with it. Like, what am I afraid of? Where is this coming from? I will always go back to the unconscious childhood message and the heart longing message
Mm,
for any work that I do. I'm always going to go back there. Okay. So, for like, if I look at the Enneagram 7, the unconscious messaging is you can't trust anyone for anything.
right.
Okay. Then I'm going to look at my shadow side and know, like, well, that's why I keep everything happy and away from me. Like, I'll deal with everything internally, but outwardly, nobody's going to see vulnerability and weakness because I can't trust anybody with that part of my heart. So that's a no. So it'll be a pretty strong no to that. And then that heart longing, I want to know I'm going to be taken care of. But as a 3, as a 3, 7, 8, this assertive group doesn't really believe that this is true, that somebody
Right.
is gonna be there to meet that need. So, we actually are like, "I'm good, I'll do it on my own, don't worry about it." So, I don't trust I'm gonna be taken care of. I want to know I'm gonna be taken care of. I don't trust that that's true. So then I'm gonna use these coping strategies to try to maintain some type of normalcy in my life.
Yeah.
And
You,
mhm,
I got a little story about like
yeah,
about that. So early this year, I had to have an endoscopy done, and they said I had to have a friend drive me and stay with me. I'm like, well, if I can't find anybody, I'm pretty sure I can make it happen myself. I'm not going to be high for anesthesia, but I
yeah.
can drive myself 10 miles across town. So
Yes, yeah, yeah, that vulnerability,
yeah,
you
and
know?
it was tough. Even then for a 3,
Mhm,
it's like
mhm,
image wise, I don't want people to see me like
mhm,
this, see me
mhm,
doped up and not
right.
fully coherent.
Yes, right.
But
Yeah, that
that's
imagery, I say this often, I'm sure I did not get this, and I don't sorry if somebody's listened to it and they're like, "That's mine." Tell us, we'll give you credit. I don't remember who said it. But vulnerability plus truth equals trust.
mm,
So vulnerability plus truth equals trust. And so all of us, when we're doing work and we're asked to be vulnerable in these places, first of all, we have to know that we're safe enough to do the work.
right.
Said that earlier. But then the truth piece is really vital to the trust piece. So being vulnerable and truthful equals trust. And so all of the work at the end of the day, that I work with clients, it's moving people to healthier connection, healthier relationships because human beings are created for connection. And so that's the goal is to move people to a healthier state. So whether we look at shadow work or whatever we're looking at, it's like, okay, what's getting between me and my connections? What's getting
Yeah,
in between me and my relationships? And what do I need to own? And so, I guess both of those categories, probably the one that's doing the why work, that's more willing or kind of in it. It's the what do you need to own?
I like that. Well, a lot of good stuff has been said. I've learned a lot. So thank you very much for going through the silent sides, shadow sides. Try to say that 10 times fast
Yeah,
with me. I want to close this out with a fun Would You Rather segment. But before we
yeah.
go there, is there anything that you want to add, maybe completely even different from what we talked about today, but you feel like people should know, or even something that goes along with what we talked about already?
I think that if I would say anything around using the Enneagram as a tool, it's just a tool.
Right.
It's just a tool. It's not a tool to define you. It's not a tool to put you in a box. It's not a tool for you to write it all, all these things out on sticky notes and stick them all over yourself and then say, well, this is just who I am. Let me act this way. That is never the purpose of this tool. This tool is for self awareness and growth. This tool is for you to see where you're stuck, for you to see unhealthy patterns that you've developed, for you to see where fear and worry and afraid are active in your life. That that part is holding you back from being able to live in the fullness of who you are and who you've been created to be. And so the hope with anybody using this tool is that they would use it for curiosity and growth, not to stay in the patterns of who they are, not to use it as a tool to justify their behaviors.
I like that. I say that all the time. So thank you for echoing, for
Mhm,
being, I'm not going to say echoing because that doesn't sound right, but for sharing that sentiment with me.
mhm,
And
mhm.
we're going to form this bond. I know you and I are, I could just feel it. We're going to become good people to
I
talk and
love it.
work with from here on.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
love it.
that 37 energy. I always feel
Mhm,
this way because I talked with other shadows before and like, it's just something there between 3s and 7s. It's like this
mhm.
energy that's
Yeah.
impassable. But so this would you rather question
Mhm.
segment, I have to give disclaimers. Uh, one, all these questions come from a Teen Vogue article, so
Okay.
if they're a little bit of weird, blame Teen
Okay.
Vogue. Uh, but
I love it.
also, I try to pick ones that are going to give you a tough time to make a choice. And I do that based off of your Enneagram type and just kind of about what I know about you as a
Okay.
person as well. So hopefully there are some that will stump you up, and hopefully there's some that won't. I like to, I'm going to give you a challenge here a little
Okay.
bit.
I love
So,
this. Yeah.
would you rather only be able to go on cruises or only be able to go to Disney World for vacations?
At Disney World, I hate cruises.
Gosh,
I'm
well,
afraid. I'm afraid. It's that trapped. I'm afraid of being stuck in the ocean. Honest to God, that's what it is. My husband's like, "Come on." I'm like, "Nope, mm-mm, all inclusive somewhere else, but do not put me in the middle of the ocean. I think I'm gonna have a panic attack." Uh-huh.
you're.
So,
I think there's a. I don't know what that is, but like people say all the time they're afraid of that trap. I'm like, that
mhm.
sounds fun to me. I don't know.
I
Maybe
think
I'm
my
just
husband would
crazy.
like it too. I think he's like, "Everything is there." I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, no, 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 no. I can't do it."
All right.
Yeah.
Would you rather be hopelessly lost in an old town or lost in the forest?
Ooh, an old town.
Mhm.
Yeah, an old town. I need to know that there's people or I don't know, that I could break into something and there could be shelter. I don't know. Like, that
What,
forest
what
sounds too scary.
what if it was an old abandoned town that there's like I'm gonna say after the Cold War and everything was demolished type of town?
Mm, I might still pick the old town because there's
Okay.
shelter.
Okay. I like it. Would you
Yeah.
rather be able to teleport or have a private plane?
Like, teleport is just like, I wanna go there and you're just there. It's like, boom,
Yeah.
you're just there. That I wanna teleport.
I thought you'd pick that one. I was like,
Yeah.
she's gonna give me the exact same reason. And you gave me the exact same reason. I was thinking,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm. Yeah. Let me just
so
get there. Mhm.
knowing that you don't like cruises, this one's probably gonna be obvious now because this is another ocean one. Would you rather swim in the ocean at night, knowing a shark could be nearby, or spend the night in a house you believed was haunted?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't like those haunted things. I'm like, I'm gonna just stay in the middle. I ooh, I don't know. I'm not going to the haunted house, so no. I guess we're just gonna have to take our chances with a shark.
It's only a chance. They didn't say how big of a
Yes,
chance.
right,
So,
right.
uh,
I'm not staying in the haunted house. I'm not doing it.
so this next one, there is only one right answer. But if you pick the wrong answer, I won't hold it against you forever. I only say that because it's a big pet peeve of mine. Would you rather always have damp socks or always have a pebble in your shoe?
What is the first one?
Damp socks, like wet
Oh, wet
from
socks,
yeah.
damp socks or a pebble in my shoe. Ew. Maybe a pebble because I can kinda move it to the side.
That is the correct answer.
Oh, that's terrible to feel your feet wet and then cold. You're just cold all the time.
Yes, I know from
Yeah.
experience. Yeah, used
Yeah,
to
we're
wear
not
a lot
doing
of
that.
running shoes, so
Yeah.
they have holes
Mm-mm.
in for air. So rain days. never my favorite.
No. Mm-mm.
Um, Now, this last one, it's a little bit more of a serious one. Would you rather travel back in time to meet your ancestors or travel forward in time to meet your descendants?
Forward.
Mm, okay.
I wanna go forward, which is
Uh,
very 7 of me.
yeah.
I don't really like to look back, so
Well, you're not, because I've kind of done a wide range of Enneagram type
Uh-huh.
interviews, and really only like one person, I think it's me, who said go back in time.
Yeah.
So pretty much everybody's saying, let's go forward and meet
Yeah.
descendants. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think it'd be best to go ancestors, but that's just me.
I mean it might be we might learn a thing or 2, maybe we should,
So,
but yeah.
um, well, that is all all the stuff that I have for this episode. Tell everybody listening where they can find you on the web and social media and all the fun places and how they
Okay.
can get involved with everything that you have to offer.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Enneagram with JB. I am on other platforms like Facebook and TikTok and all those other places, but I do not engage as well. So if you want to DM me or interact with me on social media for different questions, I always like to learn too. So please answer the questions if you listen, because or if you're paying attention to it, because I want to learn from you guys. But that's the best way is through Instagram. Uh, Enneagram with JB podcast, Enneagram with JB website. Everything is Enneagram with JB. You can learn about everything I'm doing and the different things that I offer on my website as well.
I like it. And then also don't forget to listen to our podcast, Enneagram with JB, which I have
Hmm.
not done yet, and I feel bad.
Nope, don't feel bad.
But
Don't feel bad at all. Mm-mm.
it's been on my list to listen forever, and I still have not done it. So
One
um,
day.
I'm
Yeah.
going to do it.
Yeah.
Um, well, again, thank you for being here with me and having such a deep conversation. I learned a lot, so I hope everybody who's listening has learned a lot as well. As it's time to get into alignment there.
Mm.
So let's do it, people. Get aligned. Just like your
Yes.
tires get aligned on your car, you need alignment too. So
Hmm.
what did I tell you? Just like everybody else, a fantastic time. A lot of good stuff been said. Um, but again, thank you, Jackie, for such a wonderful conversation. And thank you to everyone who has listened. And before I give my usual spiel, I just want to say if you've listened to this podcast or if you've encountered me in real life, you know all the time how I'm saying the Enneagram is not a defining thing, but it's a tool. And you've heard it here firsthand from somebody else who says the same thing. So you know it's true. You know, I just haven't been yapping off at the mouth about it, but the Enneagram is a tool to help you get from point A to point B. And I love that word alignment. It's probably gonna be my 2025 word. Alignment. It's just there's a ring to it now. Uh, but anyway, so here's the usual spiel that I do at the end of every episode. So um, I support. I appreciate your support by pressing play. That is one of the major ways that you can show your support for this podcast by watching, by listening. Um, whether you're doing it actively or whether you're just doing it passively or whether you just turn the volume all the way down and you just let it play. Whichever way you do it, I appreciate your support. It is greatly appreciated. But there are more ways that you can add support. You can support this podcast. One is by giving financially, which will allow me to upgrade equipment, get more lights, get a better camera that's not my phone, get a mix board that brings better quality sound, as well as new microphones that brings more quality sound. Uh, that happens when you give financially, and you can do that by going to enneagramrestore.com/tip jar, TIPJAR. That link is in the show notes, as well as any other link that has been mentioned in this podcast episode. Uh, you can also show your support by just leaving a review and rating us everywhere possible, whether that's on YouTube, under the YouTube videos, by sending a like or subscribing to my channel, which I host these on my own channel. There's not a separate Enneagram Restored channel. They're all on my Braylon Williams channel. but you can like the videos, leave comments on the videos, as well as reviewing on Apple Podcast. And I think Spotify now has a way to rate podcasts. Um, but whichever way there is a you do that, I greatly appreciate that. It is abundance in my heart that you do that with greatness. Um, Now you can also show support by just following and subscribing to Enneagram Start Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Apple Podcasts and Spotify at Enneagram Restored Podcast. That is the handle across all platforms except YouTube. Like I said, YouTube is hosted on my channel, which that at is, I want to say, I think it's just at Braylon Williams. I think it's I don't know. So you can just always just search Enneagram Restored Podcast and it'll bring up everything about that on YouTube. And I will try to remember to put an actual direct link because I don't think I've done that yet, but I will try to put a direct link to the because I have a playlist of the podcast. So I'll try to put that playlist link in the show notes for this one if I remember to do it when I upload it. But whichever way you decide to support, whether it's listening, whether it's giving money, or whether it's by leaving a review, or whether it's by following, subscribing, whichever way you do that, I am eternally grateful for your support, for you listening, taking the time out of your day to actually just say, hey, this man has something he wants to say. And I believe it could be used to me. And he's doing it alongside some great podcast guests. So it could be worth time. And so, and just like Jackie likes to have conversations, I like to have conversations too. So always leave comments. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what might be true for you or what might not be true for you. And let's figure it out together. Because this life thing is not a race, but it's a journey that we can do together. But with that being said, let me end this podcast episode because this one is a little bit longer than usual. But as always, until next time, I want you to remember this, that the Enneagram does not define you, but it does bring restoration. It helps reshape your thinking and habits.